Good afternoon, everyone. We have two lectures for today: drugs for coagulation disorders and drugs for dyslipidemia. So we're going to start with the different drugs for coagulation disorders. When we say drugs for coagulation disorders, you could roughly divide them into two. So in Tagalog, pampalapot at pampalabnaw ng dugo. No? So sige, tingnan natin yung bullets here. Drugs used to decrease clotting or dissolve clots already present in patients at risk for vascular occlusion. So ito, pampalabnaw, di ba? While yung isa, drugs used to increase clotting in patients with clotting deficiencies, pampalapot. So obvious naman, di ba? Kung anong definitions. But as we will see later on, there are certain terms in drugs for coagulations. For example, anticoagulant at antiplatelet. Hindi siya interchangeable. And yun yung dapat nating matutunan this meeting. Okay? But first, para saan ba yung mga gamot na to? Anong mga sakit yung kanilang ginagamot? So, isipin na lang din natin, ano ba yung mga nagbabara dahil sa clotting? So, yun yung mga ischemic disorders, di ba? Halimbawa niyan yung pag nagbara sa puso, pag nagbara yung coronary arteries, that's myocardial infarction. And other acute coronary syndromes, yung mga tinatawag nating angina, yung sumasakit yung dibdib kapag nakukulangan ng oxygen supply yung heart, di ba? Tapos, ischemic stroke in patients with atrial fibrillation or deep vein thrombosis. So kasi ang stroke, 'di ba, pagbabara lang yan ng ugat sa utak, no? And merong dalawang posibleng dahilan yan. Pwedeng nag-bleed for many reasons and pwedeng nagbara, no? So pag nag-bleed, ang tawag doon hemorrhagic stroke. Pag naman nagbara, ang tawag nakasulat na diyan, ischemic stroke. 'Di ba kasi ischemia pag nakulangan ng blood supply and oxygenation. Okay? So, yung mga pampalabnaw, binibigay para sa mga thrombotic disorders and thromboembolic disorders more generally. In contrast, yung mga drugs to increase clotting, kinukaya siya binibigay. Hindi syempre, yung mga may risk of bleeding. So, halimbawa, after trauma, after injury, na aksidente, di ba? Pwede naman after kabunutan ng ngipin, pasok yan dyan. Pwede rin yan post-surgical, no? Or yung iba, even during surgery. Kasi pwede mag-bleed out ang patient during surgery, di ba? So, yun. Two things, di ba? Pampalabnaw at pampalapot ng dugo. Kailangan natin sa uluhin sino yung mga drugs and ano yung kanilang mga classification under each one of them. So, look now at this figure here on the lower right. So, yung mga pampalabnaw, ito yung mga anti-clotting drugs. So, they may be divided further into three: anticoagulants, thrombolytics, and antiplatelet. But while those that facilitate clotting could also be divided into three: replacement factors, vitamin K, and antiplasmin drugs. Sige, isa-isahin natin. So, pasok sa anticoagulants yung heparin and warfarin. So, for the longest time, dalawa lang sila anticoagulant dyan. No? Pag sinabing IV, intravenously binibigay, heparin. Pag sinabing oral, tapos maintenance, warfarin. Ano yung direct thrombin inhibitors and direct factor 10A inhibitors? As you would recall kasi later, makita natin, no, na yung clotting cascade, maraming steps yan. And itong dalawang to, yung mga direct thrombin inhibitors and direct factor 10 inhibitors, specific siya to certain clotting factors. Specifically, yung direct thrombin inhibitors against factor 2, while yung direct factor 10 inhibitors, nakalagay na dyan, factor 10. So, sige. Yung mga thrombolytics, pag sabi kasing thrombus, isa itong clot na nakadikit sa wall. So, nakabara siya. Diba? Thrombus. While lytics means taga-tunaw or taga-sira. Diba? So, even if formed na yung clot, nag-work ang thrombolytics. Kaya nga important maibigay itong mga agents na to after mag-stroke. Yung early signs of stroke pa lang maibigay na para ma-reverse pa. Halimbawa niyan yung mga tissue plasminogen activator derivatives as well as streptokinase. Tapos ito yung isa kong pinapoint out ng antiplatelet drugs at anticoagulants, hindi siya interchangeable. Ano ba kasi yung ini-inhibit dito ng antiplatelet drugs? Kung itong dalawa, kung itong anticoagulants, ang ini-inhibit niya ay secondary hemostasis, itong antiplatelet drugs, they work on primary hemostasis. Ano yung difference ng dalawa? Tingnan natin sa next slide. Okay? But just to complete this figure, no? These are the drugs that facilitate clotting. Yung vitamin K, bakit kaya? Kasi meron tayong vitamin K dependent factors. Specifically, factors 10, 9, 7, and 2. Yan. Yung replacement factors naman, ibig sabihin lang yan, kung nagbi-bleed out ka, di kailangan palitan yung mga clotting factors na nako-consume. So, saan manggagaling yon? Di sa blood products, di ba? Tapos yung blood products na yon, pwedeng whole blood, pwedeng fresh frozen plasma, and pwede ring recombinant factors, no? Pero syempre, anong pinakamadali? Di whole blood muna, di ba? Yan. And lastly, yung antiplasmin drugs. Don't worry, babalikan natin tong outline na to later on. So, ito yung sinasabi natin. There are two types of hemostasis. Ang nauuna is primary hemostasis, followed by secondary hemostasis. Primary hemostasis leads to the formation of the platelet plug. So, hindi pa kasama dyan yung mga coagulation factors and yung buong coagulation cascade. Ang coagulation cascade, pumapasok siya here sa secondary hemostasis. In secondary hemostasis, these parts lead to the formation of the fibrin stabilized clot. No? And as you would see later on, fibrin is factor 1A ng coagulation cascade. Now, to primary hemostasis. So, take note ha, primary lang to. So, temporary, platelet plug lang yung end product natin here. And it's composed of 5 steps. Injury, exposure, adhesion, activation, and finally, aggregation. Let's look at this closely. Hindi ba kayo nagtataka? Bakit yung blood, kapag nasa loob siya ng blood vessel, hindi siya nagka-clot? Instead, kapag nasugatan ka, doon lang siya magka-clot outside your body or doon sa site ng iyong sugat. Ganito kasi yan. Yung mga triggers for clotting are hidden behind the endothelium, specifically here inside the here in the collagen portion of the layer of blood vessels. Okay, so anong mangyayari pag nasugatan ka? If you had injury, you're going to have endothelial damage. So the first reaction of the body would be a neural stimulation reflex to cause transient vasoconstriction. So magsasara muna yung ugat para hindi ka mamatay from blood loss, diba? Para mabawasan yung pag-flow ng dugo. Kasi remember, sa virtuous triad, one of the contributing factors to clotting is flow, diba? Kapag mababa yung flow, more clotting. Okay? Okay. And aside from that, aside from the neural stimulation reflex, pumapasok din dyan yung role ng endothelin. Ang endothelin, nakatago siya sa loob ng endothelial cell. Kapag na-injure ka, pag nasira yung endothelial cell, mag-release din ng endothelin. And result, vasoconstriction. After injury, next comes exposure. Ano yung na-expose? Ang na-expose, yung collagen na nakatago doon sa likod ng endothelial cell. And meron magbabind na important factor sa collagen, and that is von Willebrand factor. Normally kasi, itong von Willebrand factor, nakasequester siya inside the endothelial cell. See it in here, in the Weibel Palade bodies of the endothelial cells. By the way, it's also located in the alpha granules of platelets. But ang magsisimula niya pang gagalingan would be the endothelial cell. So when the endothelial cell is damaged, the Weibel Palade body is going to release von Willebrand factor among other things. Then, this von Willebrand factor is going to bind to the exposed collagen. Exposure, next comes adhesion. So, yung von Willebrand factor na nakabind sa exposed collagen, yan ang magiging binding site ng platelets na lumulutang sa blood. So, yung platelet, meron kasi siya sa surface niya na glycoprotein 1b. So, the glycoprotein 1b at the surface of the platelet is going to bind to the von Willebrand factor bound to the exposed collagen. When this happens, the platelet is going to release adenosine diphosphate, calcium, as well as thromboxane A2. So all of these factors promote clotting. Diba na-release na yung ADP, calcium, and thromboxane A2. Let's focus at what happens to ADP. yung ADP na nirelease ng platelet, magbabind sa sarili niyang receptor. Saan receptor yon? Sa P2Y12 receptor. And remember this receptor because this is a target of a certain class of drugs that we're going to discuss later on. Okay. So when ADP binds to P2Y12, it activates the platelet. What does this mean? It means that the GP2B3A or glycoprotein 2B3A is induced to be expressed at the surface of the platelet. So, pinapresent ng platelet yung glycoprotein 2B3A sa surface. Yung glycoprotein 2B3A is expressed on the surface of platelets. It enables aggregation via fibrinogen. So, look here. So, fibrinogen, also known as coagulation factor 1, is able to bridge, two platelets or multiple platelets na merong GP2B3A sa surface. Okay. So to summarize, maraming pro-aggregating factors. But one of those that you need to remember would be thromboxane A2. Meron din kumukontra sa kanya. Siyempre, di ba, hindi naman pwedeng dysregulated na lang siya. Hindi naman pwedeng clot na lang siya ng clot forever. To control the effects of clotting, meron din tayo anti-aggregating factors. And this includes PGI2, also known as prostacyclin, and nitric oxide. Okay? So remember these factors. Yan ay madidiscuss pa natin later on under the topic of eicosanoids. But later na yan. Summarize, for primary hemostasis, we have 5 steps: injury, exposure, adhesion, activation, and aggregation. So sa injury, ma-release from endothelial cell, among many other things, von Willebrand factor. Okay? Von Willebrand factor, magbabind sa collagen. Yung platelet na merong glycoprotein 1B, magbabind sa von Willebrand factor na nakabind sa collagen. This causes platelet adhesion. Tapos, yung ADP na nanggaling sa loob ng platelet, magbabind sa GP2B3A, ay sa P2Y12 receptor, right? And the activation of the platelet is going to cause the presentation of GP2B3A sa surface ng platelet. When this happens, the platelet is going to aggregate because of fibrinogen, which bridges platelets that contain GP2B3A on the surface. So now that's primary hemostasis. Let's move on now to secondary hemostasis. Remember yung 5 steps dito sa primary hemostasis. Sa secondary hemostasis naman, ang tatandaan natin is that there are 2 pathways for activation, extrinsic and intrinsic. Tapos, they're going to converge to a common pathway. Pero ang end goal, tandaan, yun lang naman, simple lang, fibrin stabilized clot. Paano ba kasi aralin? Well, mag-start tayo sa dulo. Ang fibrin, nanggaling siya sa fibrinogen. Tapos, yung fibrinogen is factor 1, while fibrin is factor 1A. Oh, by the way, there are 13 factors, di ba? Lahat yan papunta sa factor 1. And take note, yan ay Roman numerals. So, wala na ako marinig na magsasabi ng factor X, ha? Yan ang common misconception ng mga tao dyan. It's all Roman numerals. Tapos, may matutunan natin mamaya na mayroong mga missing factors. Ang missing factors na yan ay factor 6 and factor 4. Ano nangyari sa kanila? Ito kasing factor 4, it's calcium. While ito namang factor 6, nanggaling yan sa factor 5A. Kasi noon, hindi pa nila alam na activated form lang pala ng factor 5 yung nakikita nila. So, ang pinangalanan nila, factor 6. Nung nalaman nila na factor 5A lang din pala yon, wala na siyang katumbas ngayon. Okay? So, sige. Pupunta tayo sa factor 1. One step higher, prothrombin naman is called factor 2. Pag activated, it becomes thrombin or factor 2A. Factor 2A is the one that converts factor 1 to factor 1A. Alright. So, meron tayong mahalagang kailangang tatlong tandaan na coagulation complexes. Pag sinabing coagulation complexes, ibig sabihin, yun nag-assemble yung mga iba't ibang proteins to form and to have a certain enzymatic activity. Okay. So, yung tatlo na yon is prothrombinase here, extrinsic tenase here, and intrinsic tenase here. Prothrombinase, extrinsic tenase, and intrinsic tenase. Ano yung activity kaya ng enzyme na yun? Nakalagay siya sa pangalan eh. So, yung prothrombinase, obvious naman, inactivate niya yung prothrombin. Yung extrinsic tenase, inactivate niya yung factor 10. Intrinsic tenase, ganun din. Pero magkaiba ng pathway and magkaiba sila ng composition. Okay? So, extrinsic and intrinsic pathway magko-converge pareho to activate factor 10. Factor 10 is a part of prothrombinase. Prothrombinase activates factor 2. Factor 2, when activated, activates factor 1. And factor 1A is fibrin, which stabilizes the clot. Okay? Don't worry, we're going to break this down. Let's start first with the extrinsic pathway. So, between extrinsic and intrinsic, ano ba yung endogenous pathway na namumutawi sa katawan? Well, ang nasusunod talaga dyan is the extrinsic pathway. And medyo nakakalito lang, kasi endogenous, pero extrinsic. Kasi, noong una kasi na-discover yung intrinsic pathway. Yung intrinsic pathway, halimbawa ilagay mo lang yung blood sa test tube na glass, or with any other negatively charged particle, magka-clot siya. So, wala kang ina-add na anything else. So, kaya siya natawag na intrinsic kasi parang built-in siya doon sa blood. Yun yung pagkakaintindi nila noon. But of course, now we know na meron palang coagulation factors involved din doon. Okay? But what's the endogenous initiator? According to Robbins, it's tissue factor. So, yung tissue factor, as I have mentioned, nakatago yan underneath the endothelium. Kasama niya yung mga collagen doon sa ilalim, no? So, pag na-injure ka, may expose yan, and tissue factor is going to activate factor 7. Now, in the presence of calcium as well as phospholipid. Yung phospholipid, ano nga important component nga na anong part ng cell? Diba? That's part of the cell membrane. So, in the case of, in the body, yung cell membrane na yun is the cell membrane of the platelet. Okay? So, at the surface of the platelet, mag-assemble yung calcium, factor 7A, as well as tissue factor to form your extrinsic tenase. That's going to activate the common pathway via factor 10. Okay, so paano tinitest ang extrinsic pathway sa laboratory? Ang pang-test dyan is your prothrombin time. Tapos, it measures the activity of which factors. Nasulat na rin dyan, no? So, yung mga madadaanan niya. So, factor 7, factor 10, and factor 2. The intrinsic pathway, on the other hand, is more of an amplification pathway. So, it amplifies the endogenous inhibition caused by tissue factor. So, saan siya magsisimula? So, it could come from any negatively charged particles such as collagen. Yung collagen located yan sa basement membrane. Remember, naalala nyo ba sa histology, yung basement membrane? Yung pinapatungan ng mga cells. As well as from activated platelets. Also, merong konting crossover from immunology because of high molecular weight kininogen. So, all of these things could activate factor 12. Factor 12, when activated, activates factor 11. Factor 11, when activated, activates factor 9. No? So, 12, 11, 9. Then, yung 9 mag-associate with factor 8 to become what we call the intrinsic tenase. Okay. So, question. Nasaan yung factor 13? Later on, no? Hindi siya kasama sa intrinsic and sa extrinsic. Okay. So, this pathway is monitored in the laboratory using activated partial thromboplastin time. So, ano? Yung activity ng mga coagulation factor na mini-measure, syempre yung mga madadaanan sa intrinsic pathway. Starting from 12, 11, and 9. Tapos yung 9, di ba, mag-associate with 8 to form a coagulation complex. Tapos, sa common pathway, 10, 5, 2, and 1. Okay? So, halimbawa, may sakit ka na ang problema ay yung factor 10. Anong mga lab monitoring yung mga apektuhan? E di pareho, di ba? So, ganun lang siya. So, you need to memorize the pathway in order to know kung ano yung maapektuhan. So, both of these pathways converge at factor 10. Magpo-form sila ng 10As. Okay? So, factor 10 is going to associate with factor 5, which activates prothrombin to thrombin. And take note, medyo pivotal or mahalaga ang role ng thrombin. Kasi, tingnan nyo, meron siyang positive feedback. No? So, it promotes its own activation. So, for example, factor 2A is going to promote the activation of factor 11 as well as factor 8 as well as factor 5. Okay? And, di ba nabanggit ko sa inyo kanina, yung factor 13, nasaan siya? Nandito na siya ngayon, nasa common pathway. Ganito kasi yan. So, pag yung fibrinogen na-break down into fibrin monomers, eventually, magpo-form na ng fibrin clot. But yung fibrin clot na yon, without factor 13, is unstable. So, factor 13, in a way, serves as a stabilizing factor. So, ano yung mag-activate sa factor 13? Factor 2. Okay. Now, another thing na maganda tandaan are the vitamin K dependent factors. First, ano ba ibig sabihin nung vitamin K dependent factors? It means na sa liver, sinisynthesize sila. Tapos doon sa liver, kailangan ng vitamin K in order to introduce a certain moiety. So, GLA. No? GLA. Important lang tandaan sa GLA, it's negatively charged. Ba't kailangan tandaan na negatively charged? Because, important yung moiety na yon for association with calcium. No? And yung calcium, if you would recall, is important for the formation of the coagulation complexes. Sige. Tingnan natin. Ano-ano ba yung vitamin K dependent factors? Meron tayo dyang mnemonic. 10, 9, 7, and 2. So, 1972. Tapos, halimbawa, tingnan natin yung factor 9. Diba yung factor 9, important sa formation of the intrinsic tenase. Factor 7 naman, important for the formation of the extrinsic tenase. While yung factor 10, finally, is important for prothrombinase. Yan. Okay. So, syempre, hindi naman pwedeng activated lang siya forever. Kung ganun lang, hindi magiging barado na forever yung mga ugat natin. So, dapat merong pantunaw. Kumbaga, kapag nag-heal na yung blood vessel, no, yung endothelium mo. So, ang pangtunaw is plasminogen na nako-convert to plasmin by the tissue plasminogen activator. Plasmin yung mismong tutunaw sa fibrin leading to the fibrin degradation products. So, ano important tandaan dyan? Yung TPA. Kasi yan ang ginagaya ng ibang mga gamot natin. Tapos yung namang fibrin degradation products, isa yan sa mga pwedeng i-test sa laboratory. Okay? So, remember that extrinsic, intrinsic meeting sa common pathway. So, kung may tatandaan man dito, there are also factor 2 kasi siya ang target ng direct thrombin inhibitors, a class of anticoagulants. Also factor 10, specifically factor 10A kasi siya ang target ng direct factor 10A inhibitors. So pareho yang pampalabnaw ng dugo, anticoagulants. While yung TPA naman, ginagaya ng thrombolytics. No? So halimbawa na stroke, pwedeng magbigay ng thrombolytic. So let's move now to the discussion of the actual drug classes. So for each one, gusto ko lang tandaan ninyo, what's the drug class, and ano yung mga gamot na under nun. As of course, syempre, per drug class, kailangan mo tandaan ang mechanism of action. So, yung mga pampalabnaw ng dugo, di ba, tatlo yun? Anti-clotting, thrombolytic, and antiplatelet. Mag-start tayo sa anti-clot, sa anticoagulants. Okay? So, anticoagulant, as I have mentioned, important for prevention. Thrombolytic, emergency. No? Kasi kapag nagsimula naman mo, halimbawa, pag na-stroke or kapag inatake sa puso. Okay? Take note, ang pinagkaiba ng antiplatelet is important for the treatment of arterial disease. Unlike yung first two na important for both venous and arterial thrombosis. Sa anticoagulants, kung dalawa lang tatandaan, heparin at warfarin siguro yun. So kapag oral, warfarin. Kapag IV, heparin. Let's start first with heparin and its derivatives. So look first at the structure of heparin. So kung makikita nyo dito, diba it's a polysaccharide. And specifically, it's a polysulfated polysaccharide. Yun yung nakakulay red. So nakalagay dyan yung mga sulfate. Because of that, it means na siya ay negatively charged. Okay? And as you could see, it's a repeating structure of several glucose subunits, monosaccharide subunits specifically, and acetylglucosamine, and glucuronic acid. Sama mo na dyan yung iduronic acid. But all of them are sulfated, kaya negatively charged. Okay? So heparin is sometimes referred to as unfractionated heparin to differentiate it from low molecular weight heparin. Kasi nga naman, pag yung heparin i-fractionate mo, pwede ka makuha ng low molecular weight and high molecular weight. So yung heparin, para siya yung pinaka-crude or pinaka-simple na form. So in terms of molecular weight, medyo malaki yung kanyang size. It's around 15 kilodaltons. Saan siya nakuha? Noon, nakuha siya mula sa mast cells. Specifically, galing sa bituka ng baboy, from the porcine intestinal mucosa. Okay. Take note na it's either given IV or subcutaneously only. Bawal siyang ibigay orally and bawal din intramuscularly. Kapag binigay mo kasi intramuscularly, it's going to cause a hematoma or pasa. Meron siyang specific antidote. And this antidote is this drug called protamine sulfate. Okay. So kung yung heparin negatively charged kasi nga polysulfated, protamine sulfate on the other hand is positive because it's basic. Yung protamine sulfate nanggaling naman sa sperm ng salmon. So what's the mechanism of action of heparin? It's an indirect thrombin inhibitor. So bakit indirect? Kasi it works through antithrombin 3. Let's look at this figure here. Figure A. No? So this unfractionated heparin, as you could see, medyo mahaba siya. Pero ang pinaka-important part lang is yung pentasaccharide sequence sa dulo niya. What does it do? Kapag nag-bind siya sa antithrombin 3, it increases the affinity of antithrombin 3 for factor 10A and thrombin or factor 2A. So in other words, ginagawa niyang mas efficient ang pag-degrade at pag-destroy dun sa activated 10A and 2A. No? So it promotes the destruction or degradation of factor 10A and 2A by antithrombin 3. Kaya siya indirect kasi dadaan muna via antithrombin 3. So how do we monitor its activity? We monitor it using activated partial thromboplastin time. And take note of this because i-contrast natin siya sa warfarin na minomonitor using a different lab test. No? Specifically, PT-INR. Okay, kumpletuhin lang natin itong figure here sa right. So, meron tayong class of drugs known as low molecular weight heparin. Compare nyo, mas maigsi siya, di ba? Yun yung difference niya. Mas maigsi. Tingnan natin mamaya kung ano yung advantages nun dahil pinaigsi siya. Ang side effect nun, hindi na siya nag-work against factor 2. Nag-work siya against factor 10 na lang. And later on, meron tayong na-discover na mga class of drugs na pentasaccharide na lang. As in, ganito na lang kaigsi, no? And nag-work din siya against factor 10 na lang. Okay, so ito yung sinasabi natin kanina na low molecular weight heparin. Kung kanina, yung unfractionated heparin works both on 2A and 10A, ito, hindi na sa 2A, sa 10A na lang. So, ano bang advantage? Bakit panaliit yung molecular weight? Tingnan nyo yung molecular weight niya. 4.5 to 5 kilodaltons na lang. So, around 1/3 na lang ng 15 kilodaltons ng heparin. And remember their names. Enoxaparin, dalteparin, and tinzaparin. Madali namang tandaan, di ba? Kasi, meron pa ring parin sa dulo as a suffix. So, what's the advantage? It has a greater bioavailability. So, hindi na siya kailangang IV lang. Pwede na rin siya ibigay subcutaneously. Aside from that, mas matagal din siya bago i-degrade ng katawan. So, longer yung kanyang duration of action. Pwede mo siyang ibigay less frequently, such as OD and BID, once a day or twice a day. So, paliit ng paliit, di ba? Kanina, unfractionated heparin. Sumunod yung mga low molecular weight heparin, enoxaparin, dalteparin, tinzaparin. And now, pinakamaigsi, the pentasaccharide fondaparinux. It is a factor 10A inhibitor na lang, hindi na factor 2A. Tapos, ang advantage niya, less binding to plasma proteins, so less ang kanyang mga drug interactions, di ba? And, hindi na kailangan ng routine monitoring. Hindi mo na kailangan mag-schedule ng APTT, unlike heparin. So, itong heparin works on preformed blood components. In other words, pagka-inject mo sa kanya, tumatalib na siya agad. This is in contrast to warfarin. Ang warfarin kasi, dadaan pa sa vitamin K. Okay? So, kanino siya nire-reseta? Sino mga pasyente? Yung mga may bara, di ba? Sino ba yung mga may bara? Yung may deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, as well as acute myocardial infarction. DVT, may bara sa ugat sa periphery, usually sa mga legs. Pulmonary embolism, kapag yung bara sa legs nag-travel papunta from the right-sided circulation or from left-sided circulation papunta sa lungs, sa pulmonary circulation. And of course, acute MI kapag may bara yung coronary arteries. Heparin is given in combination with GP2B3A agents. Mamaya, malalaman natin kung ano ba yung mga GP2B3A na yan. Binibigay siya for those na nag-angioplasty or nilagyan ng coronary stent. So, yung stent, para siyang pampabuka, no? Para siyang actual metal na nilalagay, no? Para mag-open yung coronary arteries. Angioplasty naman, pwede kang kakabitan ka ng tawag dito, ng blood vessel para may bypass yung bara sa puso mo. And take note that heparin does not cross the placental barrier and therefore it could be used in pregnancy, unlike warfarin. Ang pinakakinakatakot na side effect of heparin is what we call HIT or heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Okay? So, from the name itself, nakalagay naman, thrombocytopenia. Ano ba yung thrombocytes? Diba? Those are platelets. So, babagsak yung platelet. So, it happens among 0.5% of patients 5 to 10 days after starting heparin therapy. So, yung mga patient nakakasimula pa lang ng heparin, important na bantayan sila within 1 to 2 weeks. Okay? But actually, babantayan mo naman sila during the entire duration din. Kasi meron ka tina-target na APTT. Okay, so what happens during heparin-induced thrombocytopenia? Here, you develop an antibody that binds to a complex of heparin and platelet factor 4. So, para siyang autoimmune condition. No? Kasi, nag-bind na siya sa sarili mong platelets. Because of this, biglang babagsak yung platelets to less than 150,000 microliters. Or pwede ring 50% decrease from baseline. So, sige. And, ano siya, no? Medyo counterintuitive. Kasi, nagbibigay ka nga ng heparin, pampalabnaw ng dugo to prevent thrombotic events. But pag nagka-develop ka ng antibody against heparin and platelet factor 4, magkakaroon ka lalo ng thrombosis. So, baligtad ng effect na tinatarget mo. In other words. Okay, to summarize heparin, binibigay IV. And in terms of structure, is a polysulfated polysaccharide. Polysulfated, ibig sabihin, acidic, ibig sabihin, negatively charged. Kaya nga, yung kanyang antidote is positively charged, which is protamine sulfate. Site of action is blood. It acts on preformed clotting factors. Kaya nga, mabilis ang action. Action agad. So, it's rapid. Aside from that, it also works indirectly. It's an indirect thrombin inhibitor. Indirect kasi dadaan pa ng antithrombin 3. Tapos remember, di ba? Yung low molecular weight heparin and yung fondaparinux, doon na lang siya nag-work sa factor 10A. And pwede rin siya sa buntis. Binabanggit ko lahat yan dahil i-compare and contrast natin siya mamaya sa warfarin. Warfarin, kabaligtad niya lahat. We're done with heparin and its derivatives. Next, vitamin K antagonist. And pag sinabing vitamin K antagonist, isa lang naman yan. Warfarin. Look at the structure of warfarin. Oh, by the way, lahat pala ng structure, nabanggit ko naman to sa simula ng pharmacology, no? Pero lahat ng structure, hindi lalabas sa exams, no? Nandito lang siya when I want to illustrate a point. So, compare yung structure na, di ba it's small and lipid soluble. Because of that, kaya siyang ma-absorb sa bituka, orally. Okay? Unlike yung heparin na polysaccharide. And it's highly bound to plasma proteins, more than 99%. So halimbawa, uminom ka ng gamot that displaces it from plasma. Ano mangyari? Tataas yung levels mo, effective levels mo of warfarin. So marami siyang drug interactions. Okay? Aside from that, the elimination of warfarin depends on cytochrome P450 enzymes. So kung meron kang CYP450 inducers or inhibitors, maapektuhan din ang effect of warfarin. But let's look, ano ba ang role ng vitamin K sa coagulation? Doon kasi sa liver natin, by the way, di ba, kung maalala nyo, the liver naman is the site of protein synthesis of almost all proteins in the plasma, except na lang yung immunoglobulins, di ba? Okay, so kasama doon sa proteins na sinsynthesize doon yung clotting factors. Tapos merong special na treatment, yung mga vitamin K dependent factors. Now, kapag sinabing vitamin K dependent factors, hindi lang yon clotting factor. Kasama lang doon yung certain anticoagulants, specifically protein C and protein S. But since we're just learning about this, focus natin yung clotting factors, yung 10, 9, 7, and 2. Right? So sa liver, merong enzyme called gamma-glutamyl carboxylase. Siya yung naglalagay ng GLA moiety. Tapos, yung gamma-glutamyl carboxylase depends on reduced vitamin K. Reduced vitamin K. In the process, yung vitamin K ma-oxidize. Now, para ma-regenerate yung store mo of reduced vitamin K, meron tayong enzyme called vitamin K epoxide reductase, also known as VCOR. Yan. Siya yung taga-regenerate ng vitamin K. So, ba't ko binanggit lahat ng yon? It's because vitamin K epoxide reductase is the site of action or the target of warfarin. No? So, pag tinanong, what's the mechanism of action of warfarin? It inhibits vitamin K epoxide reductase, which inhibits the regeneration of vitamin K, which inhibits the action of gamma-glutamyl carboxylase, which inhibits the production of vitamin K-dependent factors such as clotting factors 10, 9, 7, and 2, as well as the anticoagulants protein C and protein S. Diba? Ang daming nakapaloob dito sa isang figure na to. Yun yung punto natin. Kaya bakit sinasabi natin na yung heparin as well as low molecular weight heparin, as well as yung next class of drugs na hindi pa natin na-discuss, na direct thrombin inhibitors, bakit mas mabilis yung action niya sa warfarin? Kasi yung heparin, diretso agad dito sa antithrombin, ay sa thrombin, no? Via antithrombin 3. While yung vitamin K, dadaan pa doon sa vitamin K dependent factors. So ito na-discuss na natin, di ba? Pero sige, basahin nyo muna. Tapos ulitin natin. And, so what's the mechanism of warfarin? It inhibits vitamin K epoxide reductase. Siya yung nagre-regenerate ng vitamin K. Eh di ba yung vitamin K, important siya sa gamma-glutamyl carboxylase. Yung gamma-glutamyl carboxylase kasi, siya nag-introduce ng GLA moiety sa vitamin K dependent clotting factors. No? Ano yung vitamin K dependent clotting factors ba? Well, kasama dyan yung mga clotting factors such as factors 10, 9, 7, and 2, but also yung mga anticoagulant, protein C and protein S. Okay? So, tatalab lang siya kapag naubos na yung preformed factors. So, pang matagalan yung kanyang action. Kaya nga siya ay maintenance medication. Kasi, di ba? Makes sense. Kasi, pwede mo siyang inumin in tablet form, hindi mo siya kailangan ng injection. Okay. So, what's the antidote? Kapag sobrahan na, pag masyado naman ng masyado na malabnaw yung dugo, masyado siyang hindi namumuo. Kung ang heparin, mayroong positively charged na protamine sulfate, ang warfarin, mayroong vitamin K. But, take note, mabagal yung mechanism of action ng vitamin K. Kasi hihintayin pang masynthesize yung clotting factors sa liver, di ba? It's going to take around 6 to 24 hours. So, kung nagmamadali ka, you could give fresh frozen plasma or FFP, o kaya naman yung mga prothrombin complex concentrates, no? O yung mga specific na clotting factor na for more rapid reversal. Yung mga yan, hihingiin mo sa blood bank, hindi sa butika. Okay? Yung FFP, pag kumuha ka ng whole blood, hiniwalay mo yung mga RBC and all other cells, pwede ka makuha ng FFP. Tapos, kung yung FFP, kung meron ka pang further purification na pwedeng gawin, you could get RCC. So, syempre, mas mahal yan. Pwede naman din whole blood. Alright. So, kung ang heparin, minomonitor using APTT, ang warfarin, minomonitor using prothrombin time, specifically PT-INR. INR stands for International Normalized Ratio. So, saan ginagamit yung warfarin? Same din sa heparin. Pero, for chronic, for long term, for maintenance. So, ang kalakaran niyan is, habang nasa ospital pa, naka-heparin muna. Pag di-discharge na, malapit na i-discharge, i-shift to warfarin. Tapos yun yung kanyang maintenance. So, pwede siya for most people except sa buntis. Ano bang mangyayari pag nabibigay ka ng warfarin sa buntis? It could lead to bone defects and hemorrhage in the developing fetus. What are other side effects? Early in therapy, there may be a period of hypercoagulability with subsequent dermal vascular necrosis. So, sa simula, habang hindi pa nauubos yung mga vitamin K na clotting factors mo, vitamin K dependent factors mo, pwedeng magkaroon muna ng transient, no? or temporary hypercoagulability. And as I have mentioned, dahil naroon kanyang therapeutic index, mataas yung risk niya with involvement niya with drug interactions. Isama mo pa na siya ay highly plasma protein bound or highly albumin bound. Aside from that, marami kasi yung genetic variability sa vitamin K epoxide reductase. So, kumbaga, hiyang-hiyang din, no? Tapos, kailangan mo siyang mag-depend on the target na laboratory values, yung PT-INR mo. Okay? Aside from VCOR, di ba, metabolize din kasi siya ng cytochrome 50 reductases, specifically CYP2C9. So to summarize, just to contrast it with heparin, yung warfarin is small and lipid-soluble, kaya pwede siyang i-take orally, unlike yung heparin na large acidic polysulfated polysaccharide kailangang ibigay intravenously. The site of action is liver, kasi doon ang synthesis ng clotting factors. Mabagal siyang mag-work over several days, kaya in the meantime, dapat naka-heparin ka muna. Mechanism of action, hindi ko na ulitin kasi ang dami na sinabi natin doon. Pero, vitamin K epoxide reductase. Walang GLA, moiety, yung mga vitamin K dependent factors. Monitoring, paano mo monitor? ProTime, PT-INR. Anong antidote? Walang protamine sulfate for it, but instead meron kang vitamin K o kaya naman blood products kasi mabagal tumalab yung vitamin K. Yung gamit niya, it's a maintenance and hindi siya pwede ibigay sa buntis kasi magkakaroon ng bone deformities as well as hemorrhage in utero, yung baby. Just to complete our discussion, we have direct thrombin inhibitors. So meron pa tayong two classes of anticoagulants before we move on to thrombolytics. So compare nyo yung direct thrombin inhibitors sa heparin. Di ba kung yung heparin, indirect thrombin inhibitor kasi dumadaan pa siya sa antithrombin 3. Itong mga to, diretso na sa thrombin. Kung ang heparin gawa sa carbohydrates, ang direct thrombin inhibitors gawa sa protein. Specifically, yung protein na yon or yung peptides na yon, dinesign mula sa proteins galing sa linta. So, yung linta, scientific name, Hirudo medicinalis, the medicinal leech. Kapag sinisip-sip ka ng linta, hindi namumuo yung dugo mo, di ba? That's because of lipirodin. So, yung lipirodin, galing sa linta. Ginaya yung kanyang composition. Tapos, iba na pangalan ng gamot, Decirodin and Bivalirudin. Okay. Yan. So, yan ay mga linta derivatives, no? Take note na meron ka pang isa, argatroban. Pero ang argatroban, from the name itself, arg, nanggaling siya sa arginine. So, unlike lipirodin, na galing sa linta, ito, galing sa amino acid. Okay? It's a small molecule with short half-life. Tapos, a derivative of argatroban is dabigatran. Take note that dabigatran is the only one that is orally active among these direct thrombin inhibitors. Kaya siya pinaka-most used out of this. Okay. Take note na yung activity ng direct thrombin inhibitors, lahat involves thrombin. Kaya nga, yung kanyang pangalan, di ba? Pero unlike heparin na nag-work lang habang lumulutang yung thrombin sa blood, itong direct thrombin inhibitors, nag-work kahit yung mga thrombin na enmeshed within developing clots, kahit naka-part na siya ng blood clot. Okay? And take note na yung lipirodin and derivatives bind both to thrombin as well as to thrombin substrates. Yung argatroban naman binds to the active site itself. Yung bivalirudin, additionally, aside from acting on thrombin, it also inhibits platelet activation. So, anong gamot? Pag na-overdose ng direct thrombin inhibitors, meron ba siyang parang protamine sulfate or parang vitamin K? Ang kanyang counterpart na antidote is idarucizumab. So, from the name itself, umab. So, or izumab. Izu, kapag nakita nyo yan sa pangalan ng monoclonal antibody, it means it's a humanized form. Tapos yung AB, AB, specifically, or MAB pala, it stands for monoclonal antibody. No? So, hawig yan in terms of structure ng mga antibodies natin sa katawan. Pero siya, dinevelop using biotechnology to bind specifically the drugs. No? Specifically, dabigatran. So itong idarucizumab, siya ang antidote ng dabigatran. Lastly, for anticoagulants, we have direct oral factor 10A inhibitors. So, from the name pa lang, alam mo na yung mechanism of action. Factor 10A inhibition. But take note hindi siya factor XA. Pero syempre, kapag nilagay mo siya sa pangalan ng gamot, X na siya. Okay. So, madali din tandaan, di ba? Kasi rivaroxaban sa stands for factor 10A. Another thing na madaling tandaan, lahat sila rivaroxaban, apixaban, edoxaban, and betrixaban. Lahat sila nag-end in saban. Tapos, nasa pangalan na nga ng drug class, di ba? Oral 10A inhibitors. Oral. So, hindi siya katulad ng heparin. Hindi siya katulad ng most direct thrombin inhibitors. Direct thrombin inhibitors, no? Kasi yun, karamihan, kailangan ibigay parenterally. Okay? So, they have a shorter half-life than warfarin, pero more rapid yung action. So, kung yung warfarin, oral pero mabagal tumalab, ito oral pero mabilis tumalab. And aside from that, hindi na kailangan i-monitor yung effect. Hindi siya kailangan ng PTINR. So, yung mechanism of action, obvious na. It binds to factor 10A. Pero yung binabind ba niya na factor 10A, yung palutang-lutang lang sa blood, kasama yon, pero it also binds those na nakabind na sa clotting complex. Yung sinasabi natin, di ba, na prothrombinase. Yung factor 10A na part ng prothrombinase, binabind din ng rivaroxaban. Meron din ba siyang reversing agent like idrisizumab, like protamine sulfate, like vitamin K? Yes. And that reversal agent is andexanet alpha. So it is a modified recombinant inactive form of factor 10A. So para siyang decoy. Sige, explain natin yan further. So di ba meron kang rivaroxaban? Ang rivaroxaban mo, magbabind siya sa factor 10A. Pero, kapag na-overdose ka na, masyado ka maraming rivaroxaban, gusto mo ma-interrupt to, di ba? Yung binding na to. So, ang gagawin mo, bibigay ka ng andexanet alpha. Gagawin ng andexanet alpha, aagawin niya yung rivaroxaban, no? Sa akin ka na lang mag-bind, wag na kay factor 10A. To summarize anticoagulants, all of them work on secondary hemostasis. Pero yung heparin, diretso, indirectly sa factor 2A via antithrombin 3, di ba? Okay. Direct thrombin inhibitors, directly sa thrombin din. Okay. Yung rivaroxaban, saan nag-work? Siya ay oral factor 10A inhibitor. So, dito siya sa factor 10A. Both yung palutang-lutang and yung part ng prothrombinase. Yung warfarin, saan dyan? Dito siya sa lahat na vitamin K dependent factors such as factor 9, factor 2, factor 7, and factor 10. Okay. Let's move on now to fibrinolytic drugs. So, ang fibrinolytic drugs, mag-work siya kapag nabuo na yung fibrin clot. No? So, dito siya sa pangtunaw ng formed blood clots. There are two general classes that I would like you to remember. Tissue plasminogen activator and streptokinase. Okay? So, yung tissue plasminogen activator, ginagamit niya, ginagaya niya yung nasa katawan natin. While itong streptokinase, ginagaya niya yung nasa bacteria. Ang example ng mga tissue plasminogen activator, alteplase, retoplase, tenecteplase. Madaling tandaan because place ang dulo. Place galing sa plasminogen. Okay? Yun namang streptokinase, ginagaya niya yung nakikita sa bacteria. So, anong bacteria? Di streptococci. All of them are given intravenously. Wala silang oral form. Tapos, ibibigay mo sila sa emergency room setting, no? Yan. Masinugo dyan sa ospital dahil na stroke. Okay. So, ano ginagawa ng mga thrombolytic enzymes na to? They convert plasminogen to plasmin. Tapos, plasmin yung magde-degrade ng fibrin-stabilized clots. Take note na sa katawan ng tao, yung tissue plasminogen activator has little activity unless bound to fibrin. In other words, nagiging active lang siya sa site ng blood clot. Diba? Amazing yung kanyang activity. So, it's only selecting for plasminogen already bound to fibrin. So, i-activate niya lang yung plasminogen kapag malapit na dun sa site ng blood clot. However, At pharmacologic levels, sa doses na binibigay ng TPA, wala ng clot specificity. So, may risk ng side effects, of course. Tapos, meron tayong recombinant form. So, ginamitan na ng molecular biology, ng biotechnology. And, you have alteplase for that. Tapos, yung reteplase, minodify. Nag-introduce sila ng mutations para tumagal yung kanyang duration of action and parang bumilis ang onset. Para bumisa agad and mas matagal yung kanyang bisa. Okay. Yung tenecteplase naman, ganun din. Pero sa kanya, longer half-life. Okay? And don't be confused kasi yung streptokinase galing sa bacteria pero ang urokinase, hindi. It's a human enzyme synthesized by the kidney. So, meron din gamot na gumagaya nan. Yung streptokinase naman, take notice it's not an endogenous enzyme. So, it forms a complex with your endogenous plasminogen, allowing it to rapidly convert plasminogen to plasmin. No? So, parang ginagawa niyang mas susceptible yung endogenous plasminogen mo. And unlike yung tissue plasminogen activator, wala siyang specificity to fibrin-bound plasminogen. Kung meron ka kasing acute coronary syndrome, meron kang various options, no? Acute coronary syndrome may bara. So, yan din tinatawag na coronary artery thrombosis, may bara. So, pwede kang gawa ng catheter na magta-travel from distal sites papunta sa heart mo, and that is called angioplasty. No? So, ang gagawa niyan, interventional radiologist or cardiologist. In contrast, pwede ka rin bigyan ng gamot na lang. So, yung gamot na yon ay itong mga thrombolytic agents. Okay? Tapos, meron siyang golden hour at in which tumatalab pa siya kapag hindi pa sobrang stabilized ng clot. So, yung golden hour na yon, pabago-bago eh. So, tanongin nyo lang yung clinician kung ano sinusunod nilang. Meron niya mga door-to-needle time. Ibig sabihin, pagkapasok ng ER, hanggang mabigyan ng gamot na kailangan. No? Yan. So, pero yung makalasan na nababanggit na numbers, around 3 to 4.5 hours. Okay? So, aside from that, pwede rin siya ibigay for severe pulmonary embolism. One of the side effects of these drugs is what we call hemorrhagic conversion. So, halimbawa, na-stroke ka. No? So, initially, pwede ischemic yan, may nagbara. Tapos, binigyan ka ng thrombolytic agent. Sabihin natin TPA. Ang nangyari naman, ibang stroke na, hemorrhage na. No? Yan. So, that's one of the possible side effects. Tapos, isa pa, kapag hindi TPA yung ginamit sa iyo, halimbawa streptokinase, remember streptokinase is a bacterial protein. So, pwede mag-induce yan ng antibodies. Isipin ng katawan mo na foreign siya. And foreign naman talaga siya. Pero in this case, ayaw mo siyang ma-recognize. Diba? So, halimbawa, yung patients na nagkaroon ng strep throat or any other streptococcal infection, pwede na meron siyang antibodies against this drug. Or pwede naman, sa first dose, okay pa, pero eventually, pag nasensitize na yung patient sa subsequent doses, meron ka ng antibodies. So, ano yung epekto pag meron kang antibodies? Well, pwede hindi na tumalab yung gamot, it may lose its effectiveness, or it could induce an allergic reaction. So, again, to summarize, ginagawa ng TPA analogs as well as streptokinase is it converts plasminogen to plasmin. Plasmin, on the other hand, is going to degrade fibrinogen as well as fibrin. Meron na tayo dyang spoiler. No? Yung mga pagpopromote ng clotting, yung aminocaproic acid and tranexamic acid, procoagulant, ang ginagawa naman nila, they inhibit plasminogen, the conversion of plasminogen to plasmin. Anticoagulants and thrombolytic agents both work on the secondary hemostasis. Pero yung anticoagulants nag-work on this part of the pathway, while thrombolytics work on this part of the pathway. Now we're done with those. Yun ay sa secondary hemostasis. Move on tayo sa primary hemostasis, dun sa platelet plug formation. Ang gamot doon, antiplatelet drugs. And remember, arterial, di ba? Saan lang nag-work? Hindi sa venous thrombosis. Okay? So, kung matatandaan ninyo, meron tayong, ang clotting kasi, it's a balance of procoagulant and anticoagulant factors. Yung mga procoagulant, those that promote platelet aggregation, are thromboxane, also known as TXA2, adenosine diphosphate, thrombin, also known as factor 2, as well as fibrin, also known as factor 1. Yung mga inhibitors, these are the substances that increase intracellular cyclic adenosine monophosphate or CAMP. Example niyan, dicosanoid prostacyclin, also known as PGI2, as well as adenosine. So, take note ha, don't be confused. Iba yung effect ng adenosine sa adenosine diphosphate sa cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Antiplatelet drugs could be further subdivided into 5 subclasses. Aspirin, also known as acetyl salicylic acid or ASA. Then, meron kang mga GP2B3A receptor inhibitors or glycoprotein 2B3A inhibitors. Abciximab, eptifibatide, tirofiban. Abciximab, eptifibatide, tirofiban. Meron ka ding ADP receptor antagonists. Clopidogrel, prasugrel, and ticlopidine. Okay? Then you have protease activated receptor 1 antagonist or PAR1 antagonist, Vorapaxar. You also have phosphodiesterase 3 inhibitor, dipyridamole, and cilostazol. Brand name, Pletal or Pletaal. Okay, let's start with the first one, which is aspirin. What's the mechanism of action of aspirin? It's a cyclooxygenase or COX inhibitor. Yung kasing COX na yan, dalawang function yan. Merong housekeeping functions and merong induced kapag meron kang inflammation. Okay? So, yung gusto mo sana, dito ka lang sa induced na function. Kasi, yung COX, kapag meron kang inflammation, nagpo-form yan ng thromboxane A2 from arachidonic acid. Yan sana yung gusto mong ma-inhibit. Pero, nag-work din yung aspirin sa housekeeping functions. So, mangyari, yung side effect, kasi yung housekeeping function ng cyclooxygenase is mucus formation sa tiyan. So, kapag matagal ka nagtitake ng aspirin, pwede ka makadevelop ng ulcers. Okay? Okay, so take note also that aspirin is an irreversible cyclooxygenase inhibitor. Meron ba mga reversible? Meron. Yung ibang NSAIDs later on. Ito, ma-discuss yan sa inyo. How does it work? Kasi di ba acetyl salicylic acid, it works by acetylating, no, a certain amino acid. Okay? Because platelets lack machinery for protein synthesis. Kasi nga, di ba, ang platelet, fragment na lang yan ng megakaryocyte. So, wala na yung nucleus. Hindi niya na kayang gumawa ng sarili niyang protein. Parang ghost na lang yan of itself. Its inhibition persists for several days until new platelets are formed. Kasi nga, irreversible. Next drug class, GP2B3A inhibitors. Kasama doon, abciximab, eptifibatide, tirofiban. Okay? All of them reversibly inhibit GP2B3A. Tapos, from its name, abciximab. C, ibig sabihin chimeric. Mab, ibig sabihin monoclonal antibody. No? So, antibody rin yan. No? Nagbabind sa GP2B3A receptor. Yung eptifibatide at tirofiban, hindi. Recall nga, ano nga ulit yung function ng GP2B3A? Diba siya yung nagko-cross-link ng platelets together during aggregation via factor 1 or fibrin. Okay, ano naman yung P2Y12? P2Y12, yan yung ADP receptor. So, yung ADP, isi-secrete ng platelet kasi nag-bind siya sa von Willebrand factor, nakabind sa collagen. ADP magbabind sa P2Y12. Tapos, pag nag-bind siya sa P2Y12, ma-activate yung platelet. Tapos, ipepresent, no, ng platelet yung GP2B3A sa surface niya. Okay, so sige, P2Y12 inhibitors target the ADP receptor, di ba? And take note na yung ticagrelor is not a prodrug. Pag sinabi kasing prodrug, di ba? Kunyari, yung ticagrelor, yung clopidogrel pala. Clopidogrel, hindi pa yan yung directly magbabind sa receptor. Kailangan niyang ma-convert further to its active form. Pag sinabing prodrug, it's administered in its inactive form. And it has to be activated in the liver to its active metabolite. Okay? So yung clopidogrel, prasugrel, and ticlopidine, all of them are prodrugs. But they irreversibly inhibit the ADP receptor. Alin ang naiiba? Naiiba yung ticagrelor. Kasi ticagrelor is not a prodrug and its activity is reversible. Okay, next class of drugs. Next class of drugs is vorapaxar. Vorapaxar is a reversible antagonist of PAR1. Its long half-life makes it effectively irreversible. It inhibits thrombin-induced and thrombin receptor agonist peptide-induced platelet aggregation. So, sige, drawing nga natin para sure na naintindihan natin. So, yung factor 2A kasi, or thrombin, as well as another related peptide, which is TRAP, no? Thrombin receptor agonist peptide, they both induce platelet aggregation. And yan yung ini-inhibit ng vorapaxar. Next class of drugs, adenosine reuptake inhibitors and phosphodiesterase inhibitors, dipyridamole and cilostazol. Pletal or pletal ang brand name. So, dual mechanism of action because, yun nga sa pangalan ng class nila, di ba? Dalawa yung tinutukoy. So, pinapataas niya yung levels of adenosine while inhibiting phosphodiesterase enzymes. Okay. So, ito kasi phosphodiesterases, they degrade cyclic nucleotides. Example, CAMP and CGMP. Yung kasing CAMP is a platelet aggregation inhibitor. Yung CGMP naman, vasodilator. So, both pampapromote ng blood flow, di ba? So, ginagawa ng phosphodiesterase 3 in particular, or phosphodiesterases in general, they degrade these products. So, by inhibiting these enzymes, mapapataas yung levels mo of CAMP. Okay. How about din naman sa adenosine part? Ang ginagawa ng dipyridamole and cilostazol sa endothelial cells as well as sa RBCs is that ini-inhibit niya yung uptake of adenosine. Pag so, yan. So, ganito yung blood vessel, di ba? Sa gilid ng wall, yung mga endothelial cells. Tapos, nasa palutang-lutang sa blood, yung platelets. So, pag na-inhibit yung uptake of adenosine, hindi na siya makalabas ng blood. Tataas yung levels niya, di ba? Now, yung adenosine will bind to at A2 receptors or platelet adenosine receptors. Kapag nag-bind yon sa A2 receptors ng platelet, tataas yung intracellular platelet cyclic adenosine monophosphate levels. And the result, yun din, ma-inhibit yung platelet aggregation, no? So, whether via phosphodiesterase or by increasing adenosine, the end result is both to increase CAMP, and CAMP is the one that inhibits platelet aggregation. So, para kanino reseta yung mga gamot na to? So, kung mapapansin nyo, yung lecture na to, pati yung next lecture, are all cardio drugs, no? Kasi lahat related sa blood. Pati yung isa mamaya, dyslipidemia, cardio conditions din yung gagamit nun, no? Okay. So, pinakamagamit dyan sa antiplatelet drugs, ano pa ba? Kundi aspirin, no? Kasi, it prevents further reinfarction. So, kaya nga siya maintenance ng maraming matatanda, di ba? Kasi yung iba doon, mataas yung risk, or yung iba doon, post-MI na, di ba? Yung iba doon, na-stroke na, yung iba doon, inatake na sa puso. So, it prevents further infarcts in persons who have one or more myocardial infarctions. It also prevents transient ischemic attacks, ischemic stroke, as well as thrombotic events. Now, yung GP2B3A inhibitors, yung eptifibatide, tirofiban, para kanino yon? It prevents restenosis after coronary angioplasty. So, yung nag-angioplasty na, yung nilagyan na ng stent, para hindi na ulit magsara, hindi na ulit magbara, maintenance nila, GP2B3A. Also, for a short period of time, kasi marami binibigay na gamot, di ba, after katakin sa puso. pwede ka rin bigyan ng GP2B3A inhibitors. So yung mga halimbawa, yung may acute coronary syndromes like unstable angina and yung may non-Q wave acute myocardial infarction. Okay, how about yung mga P2Y12 inhibitors, yung clopidogrel and ticlopidine? Ganun din, prevention din sila. Pero para siyang second line kapag hindi makatolerate ng aspirin yung pasyente for various reasons, no? Pwedeng may side effect or what, pwedeng ibigay instead ay clopidogrel. Okay? Tapos, binibigay din siya routinely after no stenting. 6 to 12 months alongside aspirin. No? So, kahit pareho sa antiplatelet, huwag kayong magtataka. Baka naman question nyo pag nakita ko na reseta. Parehong antiplatelet, ganun talaga. No? Binibigay sila together para meron silang additive na effect. Okay. Next, lastly pala, yung dipyridamole and cilostazol. Yung dipyridamole is adjunct to warfarin in prevention of thrombosis for those with valve replacement. So, special yung gamit ng dipyridamole. Yung sa mga pinalitan lang ng valves. So, either mechanical valves, no? Or whatever valves, pamaan yan. Tapos, yung cilostazol is unique. Hindi siya sa heart problem. It's more for a peripheral vascular disease. Yung peripheral arterial disease. Sa physical examination module ninyo, matututunan niyo later on ano ba yung symptoms kapag peripheral arterial disease. Okay? Yan. It's used to treat intermittent claudication, which is a specific manifestation of peripheral arterial disease or peripheral arterial occlusive disease. So, either PAD or PAOD. Tapos, yung intermittent claudication, ganito yan. Pag naglakad-lakad ka, tapos, sumakit yung paa mo, bigla sumobrang sakit. Ang dahilan nun, kapag nakukulangan kasi ng oxygen yung paa ng person na may arterial disease, no? So, the drug used to treat that is cilostazol. Okay, so what are the side effects? Ang most important siguro tandaan dyan, of course, yung aspirin. Kasi meron siyang GI side effects. Yung nga, mas mataas yung risk ng ulcers, no? Peptic ulcer disease. Tapos, meron din CNS effects. Yung GP2B3A naman, with prolonged use, it could lead to a drop in your platelet, condition called thrombocytopenia. Ticlopidine, hindi siya masyado ginagamit because it causes bleeding naman in a sizable number of patients, around 5%. Sa iba, pwede pang magkaroon ng neutropenia, bilang babagsak yung neutrophils. And very rarely, thrombotic-thrombocytopenic purpura. Side effect ng dipyridamole and cilostazol, headaches and palpitations. Yung cilostazol naman is contraindicated among patients with heart failure. So now we're done dun sa mga pampalabnaw ng dugo. Ano naman yung pag gusto mong mamuo yung dugo? So now, dun sa mga may bleeding disorders, no? Pag gusto mong mag-ampat yung daloy ng dugo, ano yung bibigay natin? Well, first of course, you have to know what's the cause. So ang bleeding, pwedeng vitamin K deficiency. Halimbawa, naka-warfarin, di ba, ng matagal. Kaya naman yung mga hindi kumakain ng green leafy vegetables. And yung mga newborn pala. Kasi immature pa yung kanilang vitamin K synthesis. Kasi remember, kailangan mo ng healthy microbiota sa iyong bituka para makasynthesize ka ng vitamin K. Pwede rin naman mayroong genetic errors of clotting factor synthesis. Di ba maraming types ng hemophilia? Review nyo nga. Doon, yung mga lecture natin ng first year. Di ba may hemophilia A, hemophilia B, hemophilia C? Pwede rin naman drug-induced conditions, of course. Nabanggit na natin yung anticoagulants. So, pwedeng effect nun, di ba? Lastly, pwedeng bagsak yung platelet for whatever reason. Pwedeng meron kang aplastic anemia. Pwedeng meron kang cancer. Pwedeng meron kang myelofibrosis. Whatever cause that could lower your platelet could cause bleeding. So, how are you going to manage low platelet? Di, palitan yung platelet. Saan manggagaling? Sa platelet concentrate. Pwede kang umorder humingi sa blood bank. Okay, but I would like to mention a drug. It's Oprelvecin. Oprelvecin, may ginagaya siyang molecule sa katawan natin endogenously. Ang ginagaya niya is the megakaryocyte growth factor, interleukin 11. So, ito kasing IL-11, siya ay isang megakaryocyte growth factor. So, pinapromote niya yung proliferation ng megakaryocytes. And, ano nga ulit ang platelet? Di ba platelets are just megakaryocyte fragments. Yan. Kapag vitamin K naman ang problema, halimbawa, naka-warfarin, di ba? O kaya naman, newborn, you could give vitamin K, which is a fat-soluble vitamin, along with vitamin A, D, and E, di ba? Decumonic natin dyan. Okay, so it's more common in older persons with abnormalities of fat absorption. So, for whatever reason, marami naman dahilan yan. As well as in newborns. So, you can give oral vitamin K or parenteral phytonadione, which is vitamin K1. Large doses are used to reverse the anticoagulant effect of excess warfarin. But remember, hindi nga siya agad-agad tumatalab. Kailangan mo na muna ng palitan ng platelet concentrate, no? Or FFP. Or recombinant coagulation factors. Pwede rin. Lahat yan. Kung nila available sa blood bank. So, yung options nga ulitin lang natin. Siyempre, nandyan yung clotting factors. Pwedeng fresh frozen plasma. Pag sabing kaya siya fresh frozen plasma, kasi after i-separate ng plasma, within 24 hours, dapat na-freeze na siya, nakalagay na siya sa ref, no? Kasi kung hindi, magka-clot siya mag-isa. Yeah, very sensitive kasi yung FFP na yan. Next is yung purified human blood clotting factors. Ito, inalis na yung other things. Kasi yung plasma minsan, kasi marami siyang kasama proteins doon di ba? Pati antibodies nandun. So minsan, prone siya to immune reactions. So minsan, halimbawa, mayroong autoimmune condition yung patient, mas prefer magbigay ng purified clotting factors para wala na masyadong side effects. So for that, for hemophilia A, you give factor 8 kasi nga yun ang kulang dyan sa kanya, diba? Defective yung factor 8 sa hemophilia A. For hemophilia B, you give factor 9. However, in everything, sa lahat ng blood products, merong risk of immunologic reactions as well as infection kasi naman, diba, galing lang yan sa ibang tao din. Tapos, yung blood bank, meron din silang screening process. Pero of course, hindi yun perfect, no? So, pwede pa rin may makalusot. And lastly, just to complete our picture, we have antiplasmin agents. Nakita natin to kanina, di ba? So, this is aminocaproic acid and tranexamic acid. Kanino ibibigay? For many things. So, pwede for patients with hemophilia. Pwede yung during surgery. Pwede after bunutan ka ng ngipin. No? Mechanism of action, it inhibits plasminogen activation. Kasi remember, plasminogen gets converted to plasmin. Tapos plasmin, yung nagde-degrade ng both fibrinogen and fibrin. Remember, ito yung picture natin, di ba? Okay. So, sige. Summary, before we end. Drugs for clotting disorders. Pwedeng pampalabnaw or pampabuo ng dugo, no? So, pwedeng drugs for clotting disorders or drugs for bleeding disorders. Okay? So, yung drugs for clotting disorders, madi-divide mo siya into two. Pwedeng sa primary hemostasis or secondary hemostasis. Sa primary hemostasis, nandyan yung mga antiplatelet drugs. Diba, 5 classes lang pinapamemorize ko doon. Tapos sa secondary hemostasis naman, nandito yung anticoagulants and thrombolytics. Okay? Tapos, yung thrombolytics, dito siya nag-work, di ba? While, yung anticoagulants, dito siya. Okay? Dalawa lang naman yun, heparin and warfarin. Pag yun lang, solve ka na. Alright. That's it. So these are just my references. As always, Goodman-Gilman as well as Katzung. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to message me. Okay? Thank you, everyone.